Some people rock and some people roll. Some will make you giggle right down to your soul. She'll talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm on Barbara and you. You gotta take a step inside the shoes of another. Get to know your neighbor, get to know one another. She'll talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm on Barbara and you.
Good evening and welcome to the Barbara and You Show. We're all giggling here in the studio, and there's probably only one person I would put on a mustache and a fake construction helmet for, and that would be Sally Cragen. And we're going to be talking about the DPW Day coming up. But before we get into that, let me tell you who's going to be on the second half. Susan Navard, the director of the Fitchburg Historical Society, who's probably in the green room giggling right now too, at the sight of me with a mustache. Anyway, it's not going to last long, Sally. I put it on. I'm a good sport.
You are.
And so are you. It's if I smile, it kind of comes loose.
It does.
But
yeah.
This is, well, let me introduce the other guest, Sally.
Yes.
Everybody knows you anyway. But down on the end, we have Mary Jane Franklin, and you are the clerk for the DPW, which means you keep the place running. I really know how that works. How long have you been in that position?
Maybe about 3 years, 3 or 4.
I know you've been on the show before.
Correct.
And making his debut on the show is Jeff Morosky.
Yes.
I came pretty close.
Not bad.
And I should have asked you ahead of time. And your card tells me you're a PE, and to me that means physical education, but I don't think that's it.
No, it means I'm a licensed professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Aha.
That's what that means.
I knew the E had, what's the P for?
Professional.
Professional, okay. And you've been with the DPW here, or you're with the state agency?
No, I'm with the city. I joined the city in the spring of 2011. I was first hired as the DPW civil engineer, and then back in 2014, I took my current position, which is the DPW Deputy Commissioner of Wastewater. So my immediate supervisor is the Commissioner of Public Works, Lenny Laxo.
Okay. And Lenny and you are old friends, Sally.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You go way back.
We do.
And Sally, you was wearing hats. You wear many different hats. But
I do.
DPW, you and Lenny, this was kind of your brainstorm, wasn't it, the two of you?
It was. I'm going to have to take this off.
I think we could do without the mustaches
Yes.
now. But first of all, one of the reasons you have the mustaches is you give them out to the children.
We do. The mustaches were the idea of Dave Keys, Dispatch Dave. So if you call DPW for the most part during the day and have a question or something's going on with your street, Dispatch Dave is the man who answers the phone. So we go through and figure out goodies for DPW Day. But to get back to your first question, when Lenny took his position in Fitchburg as the commissioner back in 2008, it was really the end of 2008. It was after Thanksgiving. And I jokingly said to him, so Lenny, does this mean that you would open the DPW for a child's birthday party? Because my son was pretty truck crazy at the time and he was 5. And Lenny laughed and said, you know, there's something called DPW Day. And I said, we have to do it. And he's like, let's do it. So that was 10 years ago. Every year we do it around this time. We have it on Wednesday, June 6th, which is a half day of school for Fitchburg Public Schools. It's from 2 to 5 at behind Crocker Field, 301 Broad Street. Follow the orange balloons. And it's an extravaganza of trucks and excavation vehicles and a bouncy house and a gigantic sand pile that is the size of like 2 truckloads. So with
That's
lots
huge.
of sand toys.
And so is this the 10th
Yes.
DPW Day that's taking place in Fitchburg?
It is, and for the 10th, we wanted to do some extra stuff. So we reached out to a fellow named Tim Pomerlow, who has Ridemore, the Ridemore company over on Benson Street. His company is going to be providing T-shirts, and they are also providing the first ever DPW Day scholarship for a graduating senior going into the sciences at Fitchburg High School. So we'll be doing that next week at the Senior Awards Night. We're really pleased to have Ridemore on board. They said, what do you need? And again, we have such support from the city and local financial institutions, Workers Credit Union, Rollstone, DCU. IC Credit Union, and of course the mayor's office, and every city department. So anyone who has a truck who works for the city of Fitchburg, it's like there's some cool truck, it's like it'll be down at DPW.
Well, you're so enthusiastic, and it's like, hi, Sally, and she's off and running. Hold some of that thought.
I will.
We have 30 minutes here, Sally, remember. But also, and of course, you have a heart for the children, and you're still involved on the school committee.
Yes.
And that's a big job, too, but always makes you very aware of the young people and their needs.
This is why we scheduled it after Memorial Day, because the guys have enormous amounts of work to do to prepare the city for Memorial Day. But we do it on the half day because then we get probably 3,000 flyers to pre-K to fourth grade in Fitchburg Public Schools, and then, you know, daycares and things like that. But yeah, I've been 11 years on the school committee, and I see a lot of our kids, I mean hundreds of our kids at DPW Day, and my son is now heading into 10th grade next year.
Oh my goodness.
I know, but it's like the kids who were going like years ago, they're moving on, and hopefully they will apply for jobs at DPW some point down the road.
Mm-hmm. And Mary Jane, I'm sure your job description is rather lengthy, and then there's all those assorted duties that go along with it. But to put on the DPW Day is some extra work for the department, isn't it?
There's a lot of extra work. It really, the guys love it though. Yeah. They look forward to this all year long, and they really volunteered, work really hard, and they love it.
Do they love it as much as they love plowing snow?
They love this a whole lot more than plowing snow.
Do you have some fond memories of DPW days in the past couple of years?
One of my favorite memories, there was a little boy, he maybe was 3, and he was just so excited, jumping up, and they can get into the trucks and, you know, actually sit in them, and his mom was trying to take a picture, and the little guy was just going here, there, and everywhere too fast. It was hysterical.
One of your things on here is for kids and their families, because little kids love big trucks, and that is so true. And just before we went on the air, Sally, you were saying to Jeff about when you first got involved and you wanted to go see the East Water plant, and I didn't know what you were talking about, but he knew right away.
Yes.
And then Jeff, in his response, you started talking about the difference between the water plant and the water and the water treatment. Want to tell us some technical things about this, engineer that you are?
I'd kind of like to shy away from the technical, but this is my first time on your program, Barbara, and I have been on Inside Fitchburg 3 times already. And I've spent portions of those programs kind of explaining how DPW is organized. Wastewater is a division of Public Works, so wastewater is comprised of administration that MJ is a part of, as well as Lenny. The water division, which is an enterprise fund, the wastewater division that I had, engineering division, parks, cemeteries, streets. We're all subgroups within DPW. We're all DPW, so it's a very diverse array of services that the DPW provides for the city and for the residents that really help sustain our existence and our life in the city.
Mm-hmm. And where would we be without the DPW? We'd be in big trouble. And Sally, this is an event that's happening June 6th from 2 to 5 p.m. Is it sort of like an open house that people can drop by at any time?
Absolutely. There will be refreshments provided by Sodexo. And who's giving us donuts?
Gourmet donuts.
Yeah.
It's providing some munchkins for us.
Yeah, years ago, Lenny said that vitamin D was DPW Day, so that means donuts. So we always have donuts. But it is an open house. It is there's plenty of parking. There's plenty of space. We do everything rain or shine, so we have all the trucks nicely cleaned and shined. They're down in the lower garage, and kids can kind of do what they would never get to do any other time of the year, which is walk into a professional facility, which is highly technical, with a lot of, you know, $20, $30, $40, $100,000, you know, pieces of equipment, and climb all over them. So once a year, like Brigadoon, DPW Day happens, and the public gets a chance to see what happens with Public Works, and can talk to folks like Jeff about, you know, how do the systems work, and how many roads do we have, and, you know, what goes on there, because we see our workers out all the time. And frankly, they're rock stars, so we get to treat them like that.
Yeah. And have you had anybody mention lately potholes? Did I say that out loud?
It comes up from time to time.
It comes up from time to time. No, what a challenge, though. In New England, it's got to be worse than anywhere else. So that's a big challenge. And Mary Jane, I'm going to ask you a question, and maybe unfair to ask you because I didn't warn you. And then if anybody knows the answer, Jeff talked about the different departments within the DPW. How many employees are there?
Oh, and all of DPW? Oh,
Fitchburg DPW, approximately.
Boy, we
Anybody
probably
have
have
an idea?
In
40.
wastewater, we have 30.
yeah, we have probably 40 in like highway and streets.
Do you remember how many there were in water? I think it's a little bit smaller than
It is
wastewater.
maybe 20?
All told, I think it's in the neighborhood of 200, approximately.
Okay, and that's a big number. It's a lot of employees, and like I say, you have a lot of work to take care of, and we're very grateful that there are people that want to be in this field. Now, you, Sally, when you brought that up, that I couldn't wait to get over to the East Plant and check that out. That's
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sally, but that's not normal curiosity. You're different.
So I have a background as a journalist, and I ran for a school committee saying I like to ask questions. I like to hear from all points of view. There is no objectivity, but you have to get all your information. I also was a geology major in college, so I have a deep and abiding interest in anything to do with earth science. I think that, that may sound like a high number, what these folks are saying, but when you consider that I believe it is 237 miles of roads, it's over 70 bridges. And those bridges would range, like 5th Street Bridge to little tiny bridges like the bridge at Sima Park. So Fitchburg, again, the Nashua River, the 8 miles of it, and that's 16 miles if you count, both sides of that river. There's a lot of architecture in the city to kind of, have this city be the way it is. And we have beautiful bridges, but we also have, like I was told today, it was 7,000 catch basins. 7,000. And those have to be checked.
Staggering.
I was in the engineering department making some copies, and there was a giant drywall up, and it basically had, names of streets and how overgrown the shrubbery was, around the gutters and around places that people needed to get to do technical stuff. And they keep track of this city in a way that no other entity does because it's so fine-tuned. And Fitchburg has always had, it's been really important to Fitchburg, one, to have paved streets back in the 1880s, and then, sewer and the things that came in at the turn of the century, expanding, the sewer program, building parts of the city. So I know we've got really old pipes, but we also, it's constant upkeep.
Right, we do have approximately 140 miles of sewers, and we have been doing sewer separation. Those have been some of the larger capital projects we've done in the sewer system. And without getting too technical on that, our combined sewer is a pipe that transmits both stormwater flow as well as the toilet flush water, which is sanitary sewage. The problem is if you have a rain event that drops too much rain on the road surface, it goes into catch basins and then it goes into those combined sewers. It can result in discharges to the environment. So that's why we're separating that into a dedicated storm line and into a dedicated sanitary sewer pipe. So there's a lot of work we're doing on the wastewater front. And we've also been very pleased to do a whole heck of a lot of outreach to youth groups, the school system. We recently did a project with a WPI project team in the school system that's working with the STEM program, STEM curricula. So that was very, very exciting and went very well.
No, that's wonderful, and I'm sure the kids are fascinated by it. How did you decide to go take this route in your career?
Well, I was a WPI grad myself, so I went to school for engineering, and then I worked in consulting engineering for 14 years in the private sector, doing consulting services for cities and towns like Fitchburg. And then after 14 years in the consulting field, I was exploring my options, and I took a job with the city of Fitchburg on the public sector side.
Okay. And Mary Jane, are you native to this area?
I grew up in Leominster. I live in Lunenburg.
Yeah, that's pretty native
Yeah,
to this
it is.
area.
It is.
Yeah, it's funny, when I first moved here, Fitchburg, Leominster to me was like one big city. instead of
exactly.
two rivalry cities. There's going to be a lot going on. Now, what I see here, you're having a student art contest. Sally, tell us about that.
Sure. So we invite children to create a piece of art, basically a drawing or a painting. They bring it to DPW Day or they drop off on the Monday or Tuesday beforehand. The guys, the employees of Public Works, vote on the artwork. I brought a drawing that my daughter did when she was 5. She's now 9. This is a little bit smaller than the standard, but it's really sweet. And so that day, kids are bringing art, and sometimes we have occasion for kids to actually make the art there. But they do their version of what DPW does. And they always picture public workers as totally heroic. You know, like giant people with giant trucks, and it's the most delightful children's art. So that reception will be Wednesday, June 20th, 4 o'clock at Fitchburg Library. Again, we have a great collaboration with the library. They've supported us from the beginning. We put the vitrine at the youth library is filled with DPW, so people are aware in the city, and then the signs that we have started advertising it right after high school graduation, which is June 1st.
So they're going to bring them to DPW Day on June 6th.
Yes.
But on June 20th, there's a reception, and that's when the awards will be given out, more or less?
Right, and we prize it. Everyone gets a prize, but we do actually evaluate, and usually MJ is the one who helps administer the Post-its, because the guys, we give them 2 Post-its. It's like, what's your favorite? Like, what's your other favorite? And they take it very seriously, which is
They do, yes.
yeah.
And it looks like there's a lot of things you're going to be giving out that day. Mary Jane,
Yes.
you want to tell us about some of the little Post-its? I see there are pans of Post-its here.
But DigSafe, we get DigSafe donates quite a bit. They give us the hats. The kids love those. The mustaches really are a huge, yeah.
The Dig Safe hat. Just turn it the other way, Mary. There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Perfect. You can put it on if you want to. No, I'm just. The way you were laughing at me, I can tell you don't want to put the hat on.
Don't. The mustaches and the
Yes.
little hard hats are probably, I'd say, the biggest. See all these little 300 kids walking around with that. And the grown-ups, the parents
Yes.
get involved, and the grandparents.
Yes.
It's such a fun thing. We have little stickers. We'll have little
Yes.
Hershey Kisses.
That's going to be great.
Yeah. So lots of fun stuff.
And it's 2 to 5 on June 6th, and that's what a great idea on a day that's a half day of school.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that was
perfect.
good timing. We also give away these really nice DigSafe Post-it notes and really nice highlighters plus fine point markers, and these are for you to take home to your family.
Thank
So
you.
by all means, share the magic.
Oh, my grandkids. Well, you've been bringing them helmets every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so there's so many things going on. I don't know how you people can organize this and make it run smoothly.
Well, Sally's a huge help with this. She's been, Lenny calls her the co-founder, that
Yes.
the two of them have been doing this for, of course, 10 years. The rest of us try and help as much as we can.
Well, if we could just get Sally to be a little bit more enthusiastic about things.
Exactly.
And I've known you a long time, and I can tease you, I know, but no, I do
Yeah.
admire your dedication. And when you get on a cause, you're on a project, you're on it all the way.
Thank
that,
you.
And this is obviously been a very good idea that you and Lenny had, and it's a big success. But I'm just looking at this list here. Put on play clothes and explore. So they should come dressed like they're going to the playground.
Yes, absolutely.
Or working for the Department of Public Works.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's steadily grown in popularity
Yes.
as the years have gone along too, which
Yeah.
is a positive thing.
Well, and word of mouth is the best. So if some kid tells his friend, oh, I had a great time last year, the kid's going to come.
I do music therapy at Institute of Professional Practice, which is a day program for developmentally challenged adults. And last year when I walked in on, when my program day, there were a couple of the guys were wearing the DigSafe hats, and I'm like, you guys went, that's so awesome. So, we, Head Start kids, daycare kids, it is a full day, and there's a lot to do. I do stuff that I feel like this brings a lot of joy, and if we didn't do it, it would, it just kind of kicked, John Raschuti of the Parks Department said years ago, he said, DPW Day kicks off the summer. So, and
Well, and they're having a good time, but it's also educational.
right now it's incredibly educational because in the DPW facility, Lenny and Tricia, the printer, there are these beautiful pictures of Department of Public Works history, historical photographs of I mean, what, you guys see them every day, like,
Oh, it's Fitchburg 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's absolutely every picture you can think of. The old Main Street, that's a really good one with the two ways. The old DPW building.
Yeah.
They're just fascinating. So yeah, we hope that people will look at those as they're
yeah.
and it's
And
just
it's apropos
fascinating.
that we have the Fitchburg Historical Society on following you tonight and talking about that. And when you were talking about Fitchburg way back when was instrumental in having a lot of paved roadways. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but when I was very friendly with George Wallace, he
Yeah.
told me Wallace, it's at Wallace Avenue, I believe it's
Yes.
called, that his grandfather, Rodney Wallace, put that street in because if they were down lower on River Street, the horses would get spooked by the trains. So he built the Wallace
goodness.
Avenue higher, and if you were up above, the horses weren't spooked by the trains. So there's my little bit of history for you.
Susan, I'm sure she's listening in
Yes,
the
I'm
green
sure
room.
she is.
That's such a cool story.
Yeah, I like that story, but it's true. You know, Fitchburg was
Wow.
very progressive in the 1800s and early 1900s.
It was a city of industry and innovation, and the vision of the people that were on the city council and what became later the Chamber of Commerce, but all the industrialists looked at what does the city need? Well, it needs housing. Well, when you have housing, then you need schools and you need sidewalks for kids to walk to school. So if you look at city histories, you know, starting before the turn of the century, you see this progression. You see the growth of West Fitchburg, and the photographs that they have up at DPW will show the construction of roads that are now, you know, roads that everyone uses, but were pioneer roads back in the 1880s, 1910s. And I think Fitchburg is a place of innovation to this day. You're very familiar with a lot of the interesting small businesses that we have here and the light manufacturing and the high-tech stuff. So we have a really great history, and DPW Day is designed to bring immediate delight, but also to plant a seed in these kids so that maybe they'll pursue a career, you know, as Jeff did in sciences and engineering and STEM.
I'm also always impressed how many second and third generation businesses there are in this area.
Yes.
You don't see that a lot in the country, but in our area, we're rich in that. I'm going to read through this list and jump in and expand if you want. Trucks, bulldozers, snow plows, fire trucks. Kids love fire trucks, don't they?
Yes.
And police vehicles. And of course, the FATV truck is going to be there, and that'll be fun for the kids to explore too. Excavator. What does an excavator do? Digs up dirt?
Yes.
It's a big.
It's the
So do gossip
it's
columnists.
it's the big machine you may have seen around the city that has kind of a long arm to it and a bucket. They would dig down into the earth and excavate out soil.
And then we have wastewater and water departments, your bailiwick and the wastewater. Vehicles, annual heavy metal. Does DPW art go with that? Or
Yes.
Is that, oh, okay. Annual heavy metal DPW art and jewelry exhibition.
So Liz Keys, who is a clerk in the city clerk's office, she and I started making jewelry out of rust and items I'd find on the ground at DPW, and then she started making these amazing pieces of jewelry out of washers, and we kind of like encourage each other. So we have those for sale at DPW Day. So it's like the one day a year you can buy very interesting jewelry that's made out of hardware.
Interesting. And then, of course, goodie bags. Every child goes home with a goodie bag, I take it?
Oh, they absolutely do, and this year, as Mary Jane said, orange, Hershey's Kisses.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, that's going to be good.
So are you looking forward to the day, or is it a
I love
hard
it.
work day?
No, it's so fun. I look forward to it every year. It's just great. The energy, and again, the guys love it. And they work so hard all year round.
Are you one of the few female employees?
Yes. There's Trish Pickett, who is in the print shop. She's in our building. We call her, she's an honorary DPW member. Courtney Lamoureux, who's our new business manager.
Yeah, she's on the planning team.
Correct. She's been helping out. And we actually have a temp who does potholes, who helps us with the potholes, Sue Valancourt.
Oh, wow.
She's So she's here just to do potholes, weather permitting, so gets us through the summer.
How does anyone prioritize when there's so many things this time of the year that we've been through a really tough winter? How does Lenny or whoever prioritize who goes where, what needs to get done first?
Well, I mean, people have to call us and alert us because sometimes we'll get phone calls, oh, I've seen a pothole for 3 months. Well, I may not have. So they have to alert us, and it somewhat is a first come, first serve.
But that's very good that you're bringing up that point, because I think people generally complain, but they don't let you know.
Correct.
And you're not mind readers. You can't be everywhere all at once. And that you welcome people calling. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They help us. We need more eyes, and if they can let us know when they see something, before someone's car is damaged or someone trips, or just give us a call and we'll get it on a list and
Put Airport Road on your list. I drive over there once a week at least. And
Direct calling is one of the best ways to alert us to these types
Absolutely.
of situations.
Call.
Yep.
We also have a reporting application called See-Click-Fix. That's another good way of doing
Yep.
it. The worst way anyone could try to get something like this resolved is to put a post onto social media.
Yeah, we don't monitor
That's
it.
not the way to
Yeah.
communicate issues to the city.
yeah, we'll never hear of it.
that's good. That's a good point, Jeff. Thank you for pointing that out. And when you say call direct, what is the number? Let's tell people what number to call.
Dispatch.
Dispatch is 978-829-1900, and that's our emergency line also. So you'll get Dave Keys
Yes.
For the most part during normal work hours, but if there's an emergency, our on-call people will be alerted.
So that's
That-
Dispatch Dave.
That
Correct.
is Dispatch Dave.
And that telephone gets answered 24/7,
Yep.
365. Even when Dispatch Dave isn't at the phone,
Yep.
we do have an
Yes.
answering service that does take those calls. So if a constituent, a resident, were to place a call after 3 o'clock or on a weekend or on a holiday, that call will get answered.
Well, the next time I hear anybody complaining about the potholes, I'm going to tell them, have you
Yeah.
called? Did you tell anybody that matters that can do something about it? So,
Yeah.
And then when you say it generally comes down to first call, first serve.
For the most part, I'm sure that there's some formula that I may not be aware of, but
The biggest determinant really is the Chapter 70 funding. So Lenny's been with us for about
Chapter 90.
90.
Chapter 90. Sorry, Chapter 70 is schools. I've got all of this on my mind right now because it's budget
He's the
season.
engineer, he's the detail person.
Thank you. So we do, DPW does about 4 miles of roads a year, which is a lot. That's a lot of roads. They just did the lower half of Oak Hill Road. They just did a stretch of Shea Street because there had been sewer work done there. So and again, we use asphalt here in New England. Other parts of the country use concrete. So, which like California does concrete, they don't have weather.
Right.
So asphalt is, stands up to the horrible, concrete would stand up even better to the horrible weather, but it's so much more expensive. And concrete roads in California, you don't have to do anything for 20 years. And
Right.
here, we all live through it, so. But DPW, they've increased the number of, or the miles of roads that they've done, since Lenny has been there.
Right.
So I know that.
And we are almost out of time. So Sally, I'm going to have you look into the camera, give a commercial about
Sure.
DPW Day, give all the details.
So we welcome kids and families. Please come to DPW Day. This is our 10th annual celebration of the Department of Public Works. And there will be trucks. There will be fire trucks, police trucks, water and wastewater. We will have refreshments and goodie bags. Please have your child do a painting or a drawing of what DPW does and enter our art contest. And it'll be the first half day in June down at DPW, which is 301 Broad Street, right behind Crocker Field, and follow the orange balloons, and we can't wait to see you there.
And that's June 6th, 2 to 5 p.m.
2 to 5 p.m.
Well, thank you all for sharing with us. And I can see you're all very excited and very enthusiastic about this. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. And don't go away because I'll be right back with my guest from the Fitchburg Historical Society. And welcome back. And we have another oft repeated guest here, and always delightful to interview Susan Navarre, who is the director of the Fitchburg Historical Society. And boy, when you take on a job, you really take it on. How many years has it been now?
About 5 years now. In a few days, it'll be an anniversary.
And I remember when you first started, and you didn't really know a lot about this area, and I don't say that as a put down, but I mean, it's just amazing what you've done in 5 years.
Thank you so much. But this is a fascinating area. I've been reading up on the history as much as I can. I get these wonderful opportunities to research Fitchburg's history and give speeches and things like that where I talk about what happened in Fitchburg. And recently I did one, and I was telling my mother about it, that I was going to be giving a talk, and she said, "How long?" And I said, "Oh, about 45 minutes." And she said, "I could never talk for 45 whole minutes." And I told her that's why you research, so that you've got interesting stories to share.
Mm-hmm. And when you are giving a talk, do you get a Q&A afterwards? Do a lot of people have questions for you?
Oh, absolutely. And people often have additional facts because, of course, the great thing about doing local history is that people remember things, people have lived through it, people can bring you their own stories that help tell you more. And people know if they visit me at the Historical Society and they're looking at something we have or they're bringing us something, I will be scribbling notes as they tell me stories, because we don't want these stories to get lost. We get them into our records so that everybody's story becomes part of Fitchburg's history for the students and the historians working in the future.
And that's wonderful, a wonderful asset for all of us to know the history.
It really,
And Fitchburg
it really
is rich in history.
It is. Well, it's been quite exciting lately because now that we're on the internet so much with our website and Facebook and things, we are hearing from people all over the world. We see people come to visit from Australia or from Finland, from England, who have family in Fitchburg. And recently we got an email, actually a phone call first, from Chatham University in Pittsburgh asking us about a woman from Fitchburg who is one of their presidents of the university, and a woman named Cora Coolidge, sister to Marcus Coolidge, and daughter of, so Senator Marcus Coolidge, daughter of Frederick Coolidge, also a legislator. And so they were doing an exhibition about her.
Right, and that's where Coolidge Park was named for this family.
Exactly. Yes,
Oh,
Marcus.
is that her picture there?
That is her. That is her.
Okay.
So that's her as a mature woman that would have been in about the 1920s or so. So she was a kid in Fitchburg in its sort of time of first big growth in the 1890s, and by 1890 she went to Smith College, and then after she graduated from there she went to the University of Chicago, and she actually studied in Germany at the University of Göttingen, so she must have known German well enough to go and study in Germany
Well,
too.
and she must have been a pioneer and brilliant, because you didn't hear of women college presidents.
You really didn't. She was really a pioneering educator. You're right. And she was first. She taught at she had graduated from Cushing Academy, and then she taught there and taught in a few other places. And they found in the research, the people from Chatham University found that she wrote the poem that became the alma mater of Cushing Academy. So all
my
the people
goodness.
watching who used to sing, who went to Cushing Academy and sang the alma mater, they know her poetry too.
Amazing. Now, you brought a few slides to show us tonight.
I did.
One, I don't want to assume that everybody knows where the Historical Society is. So we have a picture of that, I believe, coming up. And you're right
Super.
on Main Street, and a wonderful facility,
Yeah, it's at 781 Main Street in the old Phoenix building.
which is a delightful building.
It really is. Built in the 1890s for the Fitchburg Mutual Fire Insurance Company, and that's, of course, why it's called the Phoenix, because they would specialize in people rising from the ashes after a fire.
Am I
And-
seeing 5 stories there?
Yes,
Or is
yes.
it's not just attic space?
No, it's a full story
Yeah.
upstairs too. We
Wow.
haven't finished them all.
Well,
but that's a big process. But we've gotten some grant money to update our master plan.
Was the society in that building when you started?
Yes, we
I
had
remember when
just
they used to
moved
be
in.
over around the corner.
Yes,
In a much
exactly.
smaller facility.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's why there were two reasons really why the Historical Society moved into this building. One was for a bigger space, and the other was to be able to make it ADA accessible, which has been a wonderful thing. We have
Yes.
people who are confined to wheelchairs come in all the time, and they can visit our shows, they can visit our programs, they can volunteer. And so it's been really an extraordinary change for that. I guess the third reason was they wanted to be on Main Street too.
Yeah, it's a good thing to be on Main Street. When you mentioned people, they can volunteer.
Yes.
You actually use volunteers at the Historical
Oh,
Society?
very much. If you come in to visit us off of Main Street, it's almost certainly going to be one of our volunteers will greet you at the door and help you find your way to the exhibition and also upstairs. And we have a lot of other jobs that volunteers help us with. Some that are trained in history, or they know a little bit of history, will ask for their help in researching things. And we have computer work to do, and of course it's an office like any other nonprofit, so there's all sorts of things that people can help us with, even helping file away the research that people have been doing. Say somebody has taken out pictures and original documents from our collection in order to do their research, then we get it back into place, and it's really fun to be able to work with those and see all of these 100-year-old documents, 100-year-old photos. You get a chance to learn something new every time you come to volunteer.
But the staff is very small in actual employees, right?
Absolutely.
How
That's
small?
Right
There's
now,
you.
it's me and a custodian right now, and a lot volunteers. And
Well, it's wonderful that people do volunteer and
Yes,
help out.
that's hugely important.
What are the hours that the museum is open?
Yeah, we're there Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and also by appointment. So Mondays and Tuesdays, it's from 10 till 4, and Wednesday is our long day from 10 until 6. And then during the summer, we're open a lot of extra hours because of all the special events on Main Street. So on July 1st, we'll be open during the Lonjo bike race,
yeah.
because we'll have an exhibition of historic bikes. And then during and there's a picture of the Lonjo race going on. I decided to pull out a historic one from our records that you could see that going. Gee, that
And
was
the lo-
taken in the 80s, it was earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. It does look like it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But of course, the Ivor Johnson name is very well known in Fitchburg.
Yes,
Those
yes, that's
bicycles.
the exhibition that we're going to be having this summer, and that's the racers and the fans for the Lonjo race are always interested in coming in and seeing these very historic bikes, because Ivor Johnson bikes made in Fitchburg were famous as good racing bikes. But if you're a racer now, you could see that they're pretty darn heavy at that time. So the bikes that they used in the past were very different. They didn't have the alloys that they have today. So you pick up a racing bike today and it weighs practically nothing. And the Ivor Johnson bikes, though they're very well made and solidly made, they're pretty heavy too.
There's some more bike photos.
Well, and actually, when we're looking at this beautifully restored Ivor Johnson bike, so again, made in Fitchburg between 1890 and 1942, the part that you see near the front, the red where it says Ivor Johnson on it,
Let's see if we put that. Michael, can we put that up again? There we go.
Oh,
yeah, you
okay.
can kind of see the Ivor Johnson.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah,
can
right
read
at the
on
big
it.
part. You know what that is? That is the battery for the light in the front. Now, of course,
Oh
we have
my
batteries
goodness.
that are this big.
Oh my
But
goodness.
at that point, the battery had to be about this long and about this
Oh
big
my
around.
goodness.
Exactly, and the things that we don't know,
Right.
It's like that engineering history that you keep learning all through your life.
I always am curious about why people end up in the career they end up in, but were you always a very curious child?
I think so, yeah.
Why? How? and-
Yes, yeah, and well, I'll mention actually when I was a little kid, I used to put together pretend newspapers. So I would I would write them, write them up and draw the little pictures on them and things.
Oh.
And so I do remember going and interviewing all the people in the family from my newspaper stories. But I was talking with my husband one time about how my favorite books when I was young were Sherlock Holmes. And he said, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I had never made the connection.
Solving a mystery.
Solving the mystery, observing details and figuring out what it means. That's what you do when you're a historian. So when I realized that I was actually being Sherlock Holmes in real life, that was pretty exciting.
And I lost count of how many of your photos
Yeah,
we've shown.
yeah, what
Michael, if you want to just go to the next one,
Yeah,
and whatever
I'll-
comes up, we'll talk about it.
Okay, yeah, well, this was another group that wrote us from across the world. This was actually, we got an email from France, a little town called Pannes, which is between Nancy and Metz in eastern France, so where World War I was really fought. And they have this bookcase, it's a locking bookcase that was in their elementary school. And on the bottom of it, there's some painted writing, and it says, given by the Alliance of Fitchburg to the school children of Pannes in memory of Lester Ashton Stone and Robert Hewins Stiles, dead on the field of honor.
Oh my goodness.
And what it was is it was honoring 2 Fitchburg soldiers who had died near that village in the First World War. And in the 1920s, the Unitarian churches around America had this project that the women's groups would raise money to have a piece of furniture built, a bookshelf for schools, and then send it over to France so that the children of France would know that the Americans had come to save them in the First World War. And it was also hoping that it would encourage the children to help take care of the graves of these soldiers who had died near their town.
Wow.
So we heard from them, and I was amazed to realize that this had been in place from the 1920s and through the Second World War and until now, and it had never been painted over, and it was still in good shape in this elementary school.
Now, how was the contact made between you and the people at the school there?
They looked up Fitchburg, Massachusetts, which was written in French on it, on the internet and started searching around, and they found our address.
Wonderful.
And wrote to us. And so it took us a little while to research, but one of our researchers figured out what that was, and they've put it on view. They had a special celebration. Actually, this is where they put it on view, which is this is their city hall. And it was taken over by the Germans during the First World War. So you can see it says Weihnachten 1917, so Christmas 1917, written in German. So this is how the German soldiers decorated their town hall. So they restored this, and they moved the bookshelf into their town hall, and they had a big celebration of the restoration of their town hall and of the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. And then it ended up that there was another group, and maybe we can look at that, another group from France that had written to us about 10 years ago. It's
Michael,
the
can
big
you put up
blue
the next?
one.
I'm talking to my director. Michael, could you put up the next picture, please? I always have this.
There we go. That's
there
it.
we go.
So this was another part of France, but quite close by. This is in Metz. And this is actually a picture of one of the Fitchburg soldiers that went off to fight in the First World War. His name is Robert Hewins Stiles, and he was, as you can see with the plane there, he was a pilot, and he was shot down during the war and died over eastern France in Metz. And the town where he's buried and where he's memorialized on their war monument, they contacted us to find out more about what is Fitchburg, who is Robert Stiles, and they are dedicating a part of a museum there to his memory. The museum is called the Museum of Three Nationalities, and it's about the First World War as experienced by the French, the Americans, and the Germans there. And so they've named a part of it after one of each, an American, a German, and a Frenchman. And the man that they're naming it after, who's American, is from Fitchburg. And they're having a big
Now,
celebration.
is this the Robert Stiles or different?
Yes, this man, Robert Stiles.
And what
yeah.
do you know about the history of his family?
Well, his family, he actually had been in Fitchburg for a few generations. One of his ancestors had fought in the Civil War, based in Fitchburg, and then he went to Harvard, and after Harvard, he came back to Fitchburg, and he actually managed a textile factory until the war started, and then he signed up right away to be a soldier. And his mother was very active at the First Parish Church, and she was a leader there. And so after he was killed, she was involved with helping make sure that he was memorialized and remembered. But actually, the people from Harvard are going to be going over to France in September to do a little talk about his life and his time as a student at Harvard, and what his experiences were then going to the war, the things for it. So we published this story in our most recent newsletter, along with the email, the name, and the address of where they're going to be, or the name and the date of when they're going to be celebrating this, so that if anybody from Fitchburg wants to go to France to represent Fitchburg, they can do that. And I'm sure that the French will be very excited to see them.
Now, you mentioned your newsletter. How does the public get hold of your newsletter?
Well, the best way is to join. If you're one of our members, then we will send it to you. You can also drop by to visit, and we have extra copies there. And we even have a PDF version that we'll be posting on our website, but if you called us or emailed us, we'd email you a copy too, because we want the word to get out. We want people to know. And it's got the calendar of all of our upcoming events.
How large is your membership now?
Oh, it's in the hundreds. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, over 300.
Close
and some.
enough.
Yeah.
Over 300.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I think
and
so.
what is membership? How much is membership?
It's
Putting you on the spot
yes,
tonight, Susan.
well, we just did and it's $50 for an individual or $100 for a family. And I'm happy to say that there are special levels above that for people that want to support us and maybe come to special VIP events, and the Boulder Booster level at $150, and there's also a Garfield Founders Society level at $500, and we do have members that support us at that level,
That's
which is
wonderful.
really terrific.
Now, when you mentioned the Boulder, that was one of the topics we were going to talk about tonight.
Yes, well, actually, you're thinking of Peter Capadagli. Is going to be
we're
giving
gonna
a talk.
Say that for our next meeting.
Well,
which I
he's
think is-
talking about Ivor Johnson,
Okay.
actually. His big areas of expertise are indeed the history of the Boulder, which he knows more than anyone else. But I'd say the history of Ivor Johnson, too. He knows a lot about that, and that's coming up in July. And before that, this is probably the next event that we have coming up. On June 2nd, we're going to have a movie that's called Maracana, and the Comité de Vecinos de Fitchburg, the Committee of Neighbors of Fitchburg, connected us with the Uruguayan consulate in New York, and they wanted to bring us a Uruguayan film to show in Fitchburg, because one of the largest populations of Uruguayan immigrants in America is in Fitchburg and Leominster. And this is a pretty new movie about the World Cup championships in 1950. And I don't know if you follow soccer, but the World Cup is coming up this summer, so they knew that we'd all be very excited about that. And in 1950, Uruguay had this extraordinary, unexpected surprise victory over Brazil to win the World Cup. And so a documentary was made with lots of good footage from that game, and talking to some of the people that were on the team. And I was looking up more information about it,
Right.
and it turns out that that World Cup match had one of the largest audiences ever. That still hasn't really been
Wow.
surpassed. Maybe it's been surpassed once since then, because they had about 200,000 people in the audience
Wow.
watching that game.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun movie.
Now, before we run out of time, let's
Yeah.
run down of the upcoming events you want everybody to know
Okay.
about.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I'm going to look at my
You can-
list because there's so much in June. So on June 2nd is when the Maracana movie is being shown.
At the Historical Society.
At the Historical Society at 6 in the evening. That's, people might know that's the same night as the Italian festival in Fitchburg.
Oh, wait a minute. We've got one
Oh,
more
no.
picture we haven't talked about yet. Let's get this one up on the screen.
Yeah,
There,
this
tell
is-
us about this.
Well, this is the very next one that's coming up on Sunday, June 10th. I've been asked to be the narrator in Boxborough, actually, for a program called Declaring Independence Then and Now, where we have, what are those called? Reenactors who read the text of the Declaration of Independence, and the narrator helps explain it. And it's a really interesting discussion of what it meant at that time, what these words mean to us today. And this might sound a little dry, but it's actually fascinating to think about the history there. This is the group of reenactors that the last time I read it, these were our reenactors, and it's really fun because they really know a lot about colonial New England. So that's going to be on Sunday, June 10th at 3 p.m. But it's all the way over in Boxborough, but I hope
not
people
that
will
far.
come. Yeah,
It's not far.
exactly.
Yeah.
Will come and follow me, come see that.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday, June 16th, the Rotary Club of Fitchburg is going to be giving away seedlings, tree seedlings, and the Historical Society has offered our space. So it'll be at noon on Saturday, June 16th, that they're giving away these seedlings. And it's part of a big international project that Rotary is doing to plant trees all over the world this year and help improve the environment and provide shade and things. So Fitchburg Rotary purchased a number of seedlings, and they're offering them to people to just come by the Historical Society on that day, on Saturday, the 16th of June.
And we used to have Arbor Day. I don't know if we still have Arbor Day.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure when it was or is.
They were doing the giveaways at about the same time. We got the Rotary Club got the seedlings at around Arbor Day. I'm sorry, I don't remember
Yeah,
either
I
when
don't
it
know.
is. Springtime, I know that.
Yeah, right.
And so then we'll be having our Wallace exhibition of Ivor Johnson bicycles. It is coming back, and I know that there are a lot of people that we get calls and emails of people saying, I missed it. Is it still up? And so we're bringing back that exhibition of Ivor Johnson, and it's going to include lots about the early days of sports. And so that's going to be starting on June 18th and going through August.
Now, I grew up on a rifle range, basically. My dad had a sporting goods store, and I always think of
Yes.
Ivor Johnson guns.
That's right.
Do you have any of those?
We do have some in our collection, and we haven't been putting them into this exhibition because there's so many complex regulations
Right.
in Massachusetts about showing them that we'll have to, when we do hope to pull something together so that people can see that aspect of Ivor Johnson's history, but it will take a lot of preparation, working with attorneys, making sure.
But I didn't know till I got to Fitchburg that Ivor Johnson made bicycles. I never knew that before.
That's true, because certainly their history of making firearms, it predated the bikes and then it continued after making the bikes. It's just that the bikes, it's among bike aficionados
Right.
that it's such a well-known
Right.
brand.
Did we get through all the
I
upcoming
think that we
events?
did. Well, there's even more. On July 25th, that's when Peter Capadagli will be talking about the history of the Ivor Johnson Company. That's another one that's an encore presentation because so many people wanted to hear it. And it was, whenever he gives that talk, it's just, standing room only. And so we knew that there were people that
Is
wanted
that
to
going to
see
be
it.
at the Society building?
That'll be at the
Okay.
Historical Society. And then looking all the way into August, there'll be a talk by Sarah Campbell that's being sponsored by the Fitchburg Cultural Council on an early settler and philanthropist in Fitchburg. And when we get to the fall, we have an exhibition about the Civil War that's being underwritten by the Fitchburg Cultural Council.
So we'll do some more shows about
Yeah.
those as we get further along. But before I let you go, I want you to just emphasize the importance of children learning history. I'm not sure we pay enough attention to that these days.
It's true. There's so many different things that children are learning all at once, but what they've realized is that it really connects them. It gives them a sense of their identity and belonging when they know something about their parents' history, their grandparents, and about the town that they're growing up in. And then also what they've found is that kids are really fascinated with something that's new and different. And so if they have an opportunity to see an object out of history, they will observe so much. And those skills of observation help them practice observing, writing down what they observe, and also logical inference. If they see something, it's amazing what they can figure out just from looking at it, because they've got those young, curious minds. And so giving them that chance to really stretch that way is very, very important. And we see it whenever Fitchburg's teachers bring a field trip to our museum, or when the families bring their children to our museum, we can see how exciting it is for kids to discover something new and hear a story that they've never heard before, and realize that it's about their city, their hometown.
And anything's possible. I mean,
Yes.
from the Wright brothers, from running a bicycle shop, they ended up flying airplanes.
Yeah, well,
So-
we have definitely had a lot of stories that we share with the children about people who start working. Back in the 19th century, in the 1800s, you might start working at 8 or 9 or 10 years old, but you'd have no money at all maybe, but you could end up owning the business, and that happened over and over again in Fitchburg.
Well, we are out of time, but
Okay.
it's always delightful to talk to you.
Thank you
and
for having
if
me.
you've never been to the Fitchburg Historical Society, go. Next week, I'm going to be out of town, and we're going to be repeating a show with the authors that I interviewed early April, Kate Flora and Ruth McCarty. And I think it was a delightful hour, and I think if you didn't catch it the first time, you'll like it. And if it's a second showing, you'll still like it. And I'll be back in 2 weeks. And I think you're on again when I get back, June 5th.
Yes.
I think that is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This is Barbara Foster saying good night, and God bless you.